Yo, what's up, YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down how I made 45 grand, $45,000 on Underdog Fantasy in just a few months, right? And the purpose of this video isn't just to glamorize profits. It takes a lot of work, a lot of bets, and I'll be running you through the different strategies I use to make money in this video. But again, the entire point of this video is to be educational and also show you, prove to you that you can make serious profits off Underdog Fantasy if you understand sharp sports betting, if you understand data, and most importantly, if you put in the work, right? This is not passive income. Sports betting requires time. So the first thing I wanted to, the reason this video came to mind is Underdog Fantasy sent me a 1099, and you can see right here, it says your total income, for 2022 was 46.8K roughly. So that's what kind of made me think about this video. I was like, oh, Underdog Fantasy, it's a very popular, DFS platform similar to Prize Picks. So maybe I'll make a video breaking down 2022, how I made this money and kind of some of the different strategies I use. Now, I also want to say, if you want to follow along with all of my plays on Underdog Fantasy, I track them. I use a verified third-party bet tracker called Pickett Sports. So here you can see my 2022 profit. I'm not really sure why it's slightly different than the 1099. My assumptions are it has something to do with if you place a bet in 2022, but it didn't settle until 2023. So bets I placed in 2022 on like the 30th or the 31st, that didn't settle until a few days later. My assumption is that's the differences, but regardless, here's my profit for 2023 so far. So pretty profitable start to 2023. You can make serious profits off Underdog. That's the point of this video, to explain to you how you can beat this very exploitable DFS platform. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. So right here, you can see my very first entry on Underdog Fantasy, right? I was staking 100 to win 5 picks and I'd get a 2K payout. So a 20X payout. And you may be like, cool, Alex, your first play lost. Why do we care? Well, what you need to realize is before I ever placed this wager, I studied Underdog Fantasy. They have 3 pick entries, 4 pick entries, 5 pick entries. They have 2 pick entries. There's insurance and there's no insurance, right? So I went through and I broke down what is mathematically optimal to play on Underdog Fantasy. And we've done videos about this, but what you mainly want to be playing on Underdog Fantasy is 3 picks with no insurance, 5 picks with no insurance, and if you want to add insurance, it's 4 pick with insurance or 5 pick with insurance. So you are never, right? You can see all my plays on Underdog Fantasy going by. You're not going to see, right? You're not going to see 2 pick entries. You're basically exclusively going to see 3 pick entries, 4 pick entries with insurance, or 5 pick entries, because those are mathematically optimal. And I'll go ahead, I'll flip over, I'll kind of give you a brief little rundown on why 3 pick and 5 pick are mathematically optimal. But again, we kind of have videos about that. I've broken it down before, but long story short, you need to be placing 3 pick and 5 pick entries on Underdog, or 4 pick with insurance, or 5 pick with insurance. If you're placing 2 pick power plays, 3 picks with insurance, 4 picks with no insurance, then you're screwed, right? You don't even stand a chance because you don't even understand how the platform works yet. If you are placing 2 pick entries on Underdog, you shouldn't even be betting on this platform yet. You don't even understand how it works and why 2 pick entries are so horrible. Yo, so let's go a little deeper into this platform. In 2 different ways, I'm going to show you why 3 pick entries are better than 2 pick entries by far. So the first way is, let's just recap how Underdog Fantasy works. So they have payout multipliers, right? Any 2 pick entry I create, I'm getting a 3x payout multiplier. So if I take over under, 1 to win 3. If I switch this to an over, 1 to win 3, right? Your payout never changes depending on the picks you select. If I put in a MLB pick instead of the pick on Embiid, 1 to win 3 for any 2 pick entry, right? So what that means is you're essentially getting a 2-leg parlay where both legs are minus 137. Right? If you have both legs on a sports book, like let's say FanDuel, you find 2 legs that are both minus 137 odds, you're betting 1 to win 3. That's a 2-leg parlay where you're betting 1 to win 3. You're getting minus 137 odds, right? So Underdog Fantasy, the way they're disguising the VIG, they're hiding the VIG, is any 2 pick entry right? You're essentially getting minus 137 odds on any pick you select. So in any two-pick entry, you're creating, right? It doesn't matter if you're betting on baseball, esports, racing, MMA, basketball, NBA, whatever you're placing, any overs and unders, you're getting minus 137 odds in a 2-pick entry. Now, here's how it changes for 3-pick entries, right? So for 3-pick entries, let's throw in another pick. You're getting 1 to win 6. Betting 1 to win 6, 5 in profit, 6 total. So what that means is you're getting minus 122 odds. So when you put this in, to a parlay calculator, you're essentially getting a 3-leg parlay where every leg is minus 122 odds. You can see here, parlay stake 1 to win 6, every leg would be minus 122. 1 to win 6, every leg would be approximately minus 122 odds. Right? So with a 3-pick entry, you're getting minus 122 odds on any pick, whereas with a 2-pick entry, right? So if I go back to a 2-pick entry and I just put in minus 137, we're getting, 1 to win 3. So a 3x multiple, which is exactly what we see for 2-pick entries. So if I remove one of these picks, it's a 3-pick entry now, or I apologize, a 2-pick entry with a 3x payout, right? Now you're getting minus 137. You're betting 1 to win $3, right? So essentially you're getting worse odds with 2-pick entries. You're getting worse odds with 2-pick entries. And another way we can explain this is in a 2-pick power play, you need to be winning 57.7% of your picks to break even. So I'll put this sheet in the description. It just kind of breaks down the payouts of Underdog. Whereas in a 3-pick power play, you only need to win 55% of your picks to break even. So if you're hitting, so let's just make this more clear. If you're hitting at a rate of 60% on Underdog, all of your picks, so if you can, guess BAM's over and under correctly at a clip of 60%, or any picks you select, if you're hitting them at a rate of 60%, if you're placing 3-pick power plays, your ROI is 29.6%. 29.6% is going to be your ROI on Underdog Fantasy. Right? Whereas for 2-pick power plays, and again, this is literally just math. It's all in this spreadsheet. You can mess with this spreadsheet. It is foolproof. If you're winning 60% of your picks in a 2-pick power play, your ROI is only 8. 8%. 8% versus 29.6. Now imagine, what if you're hitting your picks 56% of the time? Well, your ROI on 2-pick power plays is negative 6%. Negative 5.92%. Right? So about negative 6%. If you're hitting your picks at a rate of 56%, right? Now for 3-pick power plays, if you're going 56%, if you're hitting 3 picks on Underdog 56% of the time and you're playing it in a 6x payout multiplier, so a 3-pick entry, right here we can see a 3-pick entry. So if you're playing 3-pick entries, 3 picks in your entry, and you're hitting 56% of the time, each of your legs or picks are hitting 56% of the time, now your ROI is positive, 5.4%. Right? So these differences really matter as a sharp sports bettor. And what you're going to notice is when you're looking at OddsJam, you're going to see different prices for Underdog Fantasy, right? You're going to see 3 or 5 pick, you're getting minus 122 odds. This also applies, so it's 3 pick, no insurance, 5 pick, yes or no for insurance. They're both minus 122. And 4 pick with insurance is also minus 122. So you're going to see there's different prices for Underdog Fantasy on OddsJam, right? You can get Austin Reeves over 3.5 assists currently, and you're going to get minus 137 odds if you play it in a 2-pick power play. So that's horrible. Whereas you're getting minus 122 odds if you play it in a 3-pick or a 5-pick entry, or a 4-pick with insurance, or a 5-pick with insurance, right? So essentially, when you're looking for value on Underdog Fantasy, you have to be placing 3 or 5-pick entries, because look at the difference in the juice, right? That's a difference of 15 cents. That's a big deal. Minus 137 versus minus 122. To a sharp bettor, that makes all the difference, right? I'm not winning every play on Underdog Fantasy. It's all about finding an edge, finding a mathematical advantage. And if you're getting minus 137 odds as opposed to minus 122, you're getting ripped off. You're getting screwed. So when you're placing 2 picks on Underdog Fantasy, which means you're betting at minus 137 odds, you are getting ripped off, because if you just add in 1 more pick, you'd be getting minus 122 on both of your plays, right? So every play in a Two-pick power play, which you should never be placing, but if you're placing two-pick power plays, you should assume you're betting at minus 137 juice, whereas if you're playing three-pick or five picks, you should assume you're betting at minus 122 juice, right? So here you can see Pinnacle Sportsbook, which is known to be one of the smartest sportsbooks, one of the sharpest bookmakers. They're pricing Austin Reeves over 3.5 assists at minus 129. So if we play Reeves on Underdog in a three-pick entry, we're getting better odds than Pinnacle. We're getting 7 cents better than the sharpest bookmaker in the world, right? We're getting minus 122. Pinnacle, the sharpest sportsbook, is pricing this at minus 129, right? Whereas if we play this in a two-pick power play or a two-pick entry, we're getting minus 137, and Pinnacle is offering minus 129. So we're getting a worse price. So you really need to determine, if you want to be a sharp bettor on Underdog Fantasy, you got to be going with three-pick, five-pick, or four-pick with insurance, right? Three-pick is no insurance. Five-pick is yes or no. It doesn't matter. They're both minus 122 odds. And then for four-pick, it's with insurance if you want minus 122 odds, right? So those are the only entries you should be placing on Underdog Fantasy. So look, I know we just went through a lot of math, but long story short, we know on Underdog Fantasy, the best we can get, the best odds you can get are minus 122. And that's for three-pick entries with no insurance, four-pick entries with insurance, or five-pick with or without insurance. You can assume that you're getting minus 122 odds. So as a sharp bettor, we know that we're only going to be placing three picks, no insurance, four picks with insurance, five picks with or without insurance. And that's the most important thing. So now I'm going to dive into 3 tips for making money on this platform. So tip number 1 is simple. Find value, right? Like sports bettors, they love to overcomplicate life, right? The truth is as a sharp sports bettor, you're like a savvy investor. You're like a day trader. You want to hunt through the market and look for value. If there's no value, you don't want to be betting. And if there is value, if there are plays with an edge, then you want to be taking advantage of them. So let's go through an example. Let's go back to this Austin Reeves example, right? You do not want to be betting on him on Underdog Fantasy to go over 3.5 assists, right? Why don't you want to be betting on him on Underdog Fantasy to go over 3.5 assists? We didn't even say anything about Austin Reeves. I'm not even saying anything about the game tonight. I know on Underdog Fantasy, the best odds, the best prices are the same as odds. Just like an investor cares about the price of an investment, where they're buying, where they're selling. Just like a day trader thinks about the value of the price they're buying the stock and the price they're selling it. It's no different as a sports bettor. On Underdog Fantasy, Reeves over 3.5 assists, the best we can get is minus 122 odds. Right? We know the best we can get is in a three-pick entry, a four-pick with insurance, or five-pick, no or yes for insurance. We know the best we can get is minus 122 odds, but we know we're getting ripped off. Take a look at XBet. They're pricing this at minus 114, right? Then we keep scrolling. Jock Market, minus 119. Prize Picks, you can get minus 119. Bet Online, you can get minus 114, right? Keep going. Bet Rivers, minus 110. DraftKings, minus 110. BetMGM is giving us plus money, plus 100 odds. So long story short, as a sharp bettor, there are dozens of data points, dozens of books posting odds. So dozens of sports books telling you, hey, here's what the odds should be set at. And we know we're getting ripped off on Underdog Fantasy. The best we can get is minus 122, and there's dozens of sports books offering better prices. Better prices means better odds. So you're getting ripped off. So you don't want to be betting on Austin Reeves over in assists, right? You also don't want to be playing his under. You can get his under on FanDuel at plus 104. Why would you want to bet him in a three-pick on Underdog at minus 122 if you could get him on FanDuel at plus 104? Right? Now you may say, okay, but what if I don't have FanDuel? Well, who cares? You're still getting a rip-off price. On PointsBet, his under 3.5 assists is minus 105. On FanDuel, it's plus 104. So if you're betting at minus 122, it's literally that simple. You are getting ripped off. And if you're getting ripped off, it's like being an investor who has to pay for every stock 5 times as much money. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but 2 times as much money, right? You're not going to make money. Imagine being a day trader. Everything you want to buy is 20% higher. You're not going to make money, and it's no different as a sharp bettor. The first thing you need to do is you need to compare the lines on Underdog to those on the sports books as you look for value, right? So same thing here. Doesn't really seem that great to get Russell over 6.5 assists at minus 122 on Underdog. Sure, we're getting better odds than Pinnacle. Pinnacle is minus 123. We're getting better odds than XBet, which is minus 125. But take a look. BetRivers has this minus 120, so does FanDuel. So there's two books telling me, yo, we'll give you a better price than Underdog. You're getting ripped off on Underdog. So you always need to be scanning the market and looking for value. And on OddsJam, any game you want to look at, so you can see a bunch of basketball games, any league, any market as well. So there's a bunch of different markets you can bet on. You need to be comparing ruthlessly, and this is free, by the way. You can browse odds for free on OddsJam. It's 100% free to browse odds. So you have to be comparing the lines on Underdog to those on the sports books as you look for value. That is tip number one. So my second tip is pretty simple. It relates to finding value. Find plays with an edge, right? So the tool I'm on is the OddsJam Positive Expected Value tool, and you can filter for any sports books you want. You can see I have Underdog Fantasy 3-pick or 5-pick selected. I don't even select Underdog Fantasy, the normal one, because I know I'm always placing 3 picks, 5 picks, or 4 picks with insurance. And what this tool does is it grabs the odds, updating millions of odds in real time from, FanDuel, all of their NBA lines, so you can see all of their player prop lines. It's pulling in all this data, as well as all of the lines from Underdog Fantasy, and then it's showing you, hey, here's where you can get value on Underdog at minus 122 odds. Here's where there's a ton of value on Underdog, and you can get a profitable bet, right? And we can see the play here is Trey Jones under 5.5 assists. The bet in bold, it's also in green right here, right? I'll zoom in a bit. Trey Jones under 5.5 on Underdog is the most profitable play and also the only play currently available on Underdog. So we know we need 3. Right now we have 1. So we still need to find 2 more, but you can see right here, Trey Jones under 5.5 assists at minus 122 on Underdog in a 3-pick or a 5-pick entry. So if you take a look at the sports books, right, they're all pricing this around minus 140, minus 148 on BetRivers. Frickin' Bet Online, a very sharp offshore sports book, has this at minus 161 odds. Pinnacle, sharpest bookmaker in the world, has this minus 142. So basically every book, right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like tons of sports books all telling us, yo, this line should be priced at around minus 145, minus 140. We're getting minus 122. Clear value, right? We're getting clear value to the rest of the market. It's kind of like if there were a bunch of different stock exchanges, right? And they're telling, every stock exchange is telling you, yo, this stock should be worth 140, 145 bucks. DraftKings says, 135. BetRivers says, no, a little more, $148, right? 148, 135. And then finally, after looking through 10 different stock exchanges, it's like, hey, you want to buy this on Underdog at 122? And it's like, well, yeah, I just saw a bunch of different books that were pricing it around minus 140, minus 145. I can get minus 122. That's great value, right? So that is called positive expected value betting, positive EV betting, positive expected value betting. It's quite simply finding plays with an edge, with a mathematical edge, right? Where you're getting a ton of value on Underdog. Right? We're focused on the data, not the sports. 99.9% of sports bettors, they trust their gut, right? And that's why 99.9% of sports bettors lose money. You, to beat Underdog consistently, like all the other sharps do, like all the full-time bettors do, all the professional bettors do, they're following the data, right? They're following the market. There's dozens of sports books telling us where this line should be set. They're all telling us this line should be priced around minus 145, and we're getting minus 122. Clear value, right? So there's not a ton of profitable plays on Underdog, but you just need 3, right? You don't need a million profitable bets. You just need 3, right? And Underdog, OddsJam is constantly updating, all of these odds. Tens of thousands of odds from Underdog, millions total once you start to include FanDuel and all their different alternate, point markets. OddsJam's updating millions of odds to point out these rare few betting opportunities where Underdog is slipping up and offering you a ton of value, right? All the sportsbooks pricing this at minus 140, we're getting minus 122. Clear value, right? So that is my second tip. I probably found 80% of the picks, like when I talk about making money on Underdog and I go to, kind of my results, it's like 80% of these picks were from the positive expected value tool right here, right? Just like Trey Jones under 5.5 assists. This is a play I would be on. It's a play with an edge. I don't know anything about Trey Jones. All I know is I have dozens of data points telling me this should be priced at minus 145, and I can get minus 122. That's clear value, insane value. So that's a play I'd want to be on. And again, the positive EV tool is how I find like 80% of my plays on Underdog. So again, everything is about finding value in the market, right? Every single play I ever placed on Underdog Fantasy, every single pick had an edge, and I was able to find value in the market, whether it's with the EV tool. So here we see another play, right? The fourth most profitable bet currently on OddsJam. So you can see the top most profitable plays on DraftKings right now, but you can see on Underdog Fantasy, you can get Embiid over 3.5 assists. All sportsbooks pricing this around, minus 140. Bet Online, a very sharp offshore sportsbook, has this minus 149. Pinnacle minus 160. Bovada minus 150. So every sportsbook is telling you, the over should be heavily, heavily, heavily favored for Embiid over 3.5 assists. The over is a lot more likely. It should be heavily juiced. Getting minus 122 is clear value, right? But what you also need to think about is when are books setting the line at different levels, right? So here, all books still have Embiid's line at 3.5 assists. Underdog is just offering you a ton of value because you're getting minus 122 odds, right? But all books have his line at 3.5 assists. Whereas here, you can see for Nathan McKinnon, PrizePicks has his line at 4.5 shots on goal. So we're just looking on the OddsJam screen at player shots on goal, but you can look at any market. Again, you can also look at any sport. But what you're going to notice here for Nathan McKinnon is like, okay, PrizePicks has his line at 4.5 shots on goal. Underdog has his line at 5. So we found a discrepancy not in the price, right? So the EV tool will show you discrepancies in price, right? Like right here, it's like, Embiid over 3.5 assists is about minus 145 on all the sports books. We know we're getting minus 122 on Underdog. That seems like great value. That's a play with an edge. So this is where I found 80% of my picks just on the EV tool. But the last 20% was from the OddsJam screen. And this tool shows you, here's where books have the line set at different levels. So for Nathan McKinnon, his line is 4.5 on PrizePicks, 5 on Underdog, 4.5 on DraftKings, 4.5 on Pinnacle, 4.5 on basically every sportsbook, right? So Underdog has the line too high, right? They have the line at 5. Every sportsbook, we have dozens of data points, right? Literally dozens of data points, right? All telling us this line should be set at 4.5. Underdog's at 5. So we want to take the under. Underdog is too high. So we want to take the under 5. We found a market inefficiency, a market discrepancy. And you may be like, okay, well, PrizePicks and Underdog are different, but the sportsbooks have the over favored. And sure, some of the sportsbooks have the over 4.5 slightly favored, but not really, right? You can see there's discrepancies in the market. Some sportsbooks like PlayNow.com, Misu like a bunch of different books, there's not a ton of, like these two books, for example, they both have the under favored for Nathan McKinnon. So they have the under 4.5 shots on goal favored. And on Underdog, we're getting under 5. So we're getting an even higher number and we're getting the under. So you kind of look at all this data in the market and it's like, well, most books have the over 4.5 slightly favored, but Underdog's at 5, and 4.5 versus 5 is a pretty big difference, right? If McKinnon has exactly 5 shots on goal, we push on Underdog, whereas if we take the under on any of these other platforms, we're going to lose, right? If he has 5 shots on goal, we're going to lose on all these platforms where his line is 4.5. If you take the under 4.5 and he has 5, you lose. Whereas if you take under 5 on Underdog, you'd push, right? So this extra value, finding spots where underdog is too high or too low, it really makes all the difference. So that's my final tip for making money off of Underdog Fantasy.